Hello and welcome to this Business New Zealand update for Wednesday, the 27th of October. I'm Grant Walker and I'm joined by Business New Zealand CEO, Kirk Hopewell. A lot of changes since the last time we spoke, Kirk, including the alert level system changing to, of course, that new traffic light system once Auckland or the DHBs in Auckland reach that 90% level. What are your feelings about that overall?
Well, I mean, I think everyone acknowledged that they felt like the 90% target was going to be really hard to achieve. Almost no other economy has been able to, or no other society has been able to get to 90%. So I think people, particularly in Auckland, would have been feeling pretty disheartened by that. That said, the vaccination rates in Auckland look to be starting to climb and getting up towards that 90% rate. I think there's just the business sentiment up here is getting pretty bleak, to be perfectly honest. I mean, I think the government did themselves a favour by doubling the resurgence support payment, but there's a lot of acknowledgement around by many businesses that actually what they needed is a sort of much firmer date and much firmer prospect of when they're going to be out of lockdown in Auckland. You've seen Simon Muta come out today saying in one of his businesses they're closing stores simply because they don't have that certainty. And I think that's the real problem for the government with the traffic light system. It's useful from a process perspective to know that we're not going to go back to lockdowns, but the problem is, when's the date?
Well, Air New Zealand, of course, have cancelled more flights out of Auckland because, again, they haven't got the date. The other thing, too, is, of course, the doubling of that research support payment. Not only that, but it's paid out now weekly. So that will certainly help, won't it?
Well, it's assessed weekly, paid out fortnightly. So, yes, I mean, I think that is important. Plus, it's been doubled. Look, that'll help defray some costs. But, you know, for businesses that have got virtually either no income or very low levels of income and still have reasonably high levels of outgoings, they're just really getting deeper into a hole now. You know, we're into a 11th week. So that's a real struggle for them.
The government seems to be moving towards mandating vaccines, of course, with their announcement this week for up to 40% of businesses under their current rules. What's your understanding? Because there's still some clarity needed, isn't there?
Yeah, I think that's right. So currently, border workers, health workers, education workers are covered under public health orders. So their vaccine mandate is provided through a public health order. We suggested that perhaps that could be the scope of that could be expanded to cover things like essential workers and critical infrastructure, people working in critical infrastructure. So telecommunications, power, perhaps logistics. That's still to be concluded. What they announced yesterday was that, you know, businesses that were close contact businesses like hairdressers, gyms, when COVID vaccine certificates would be required, will be able to mandate vaccination for their workforces. They also announced that for businesses that aren't covered under that government mandate, they could undergo a cut down risk assessment process, which would enable them to determine whether they were a high, medium, or low risk business. And for high and medium risk businesses, it's almost likely that they would be able to mandate vaccination. And this is, you know, related to the transmissibility of Delta. I mean, some businesses, for example, office workers, might have been seen as low risk in the first outbreak under Delta. You've got recycled air, so that means that there's higher transmissibility risk.
All right, so in terms of those vaccine passports, the government's talking about sometime in November, but again, we're hearing that word sometime, no date.
Yeah, I think that's as I said before, I think that's the real kick in the guts for business. It's sort of, you know, I think as one business commentator put it, it's like trying to climb a mountain where you don't know where the top is, and you're getting pretty, you know, people are getting pretty tired, and so I think they really need to provide a much greater clarity around A, when these vaccine certificates will be rolled out, B, you know, we've obviously got the 90% mandate, but what happens if, or the 90% vaccination rate for the traffic light system? What happens if we don't get there? What's the plan B? I think people are really wanting to know that as well. I think vaccine mandates are really useful for the workplace, but we've got to make sure that that's rolled out in a way that's really clear. I mean, businesses were asking for it, and I think the government, by and large, is is delivering. As I said, there's still a gap around perhaps some of those areas that could be covered under the public health order. So I think there's a bit of mopping up to do, would be my observation. There's some useful steps forward, but a bit of mopping up to do.
That negotiation period of the 4 weeks for staff who don't wish to, if you like, have that vaccination, where it's 4 weeks or basically you're out after some negotiation. What's, in terms of, you've been talking to the unions as well, is everyone on board with that?
Yeah, well, I mean, I think so. Some people will have no notice periods in their contracts, and the 4 week period was really to get allow people the opportunity to get themselves vaccinated. If they had been saying, "Oh, you know, this isn't really something that I need to prioritise," who knows what those people are thinking? But nevertheless, there'll be some people here out there who hadn't necessarily prioritised getting vaccinated, for whom this might help them prioritise it. And that 4 week notice period was to be able to give them the opportunity to do that. We want to still get as many people vaccinated as possible. So that's the rationale behind that.
Certain amount of irony in that two big legal firms have said that no one will be coming into their offices unless they're double vaccinated. But of course, I'm sure, as you and I have discussed before, lawyers ready to pounce on businesses when they stop people coming in who aren't vaccinated.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I think that's one of the reasons why, you know, businesses, particularly small and medium-sized businesses, but even large businesses were saying, hell, we need much more certainty around what we can do here. We just want our people to be safe. We want to run a safe workplace. And we want to know that we can mandate vaccinations because we know that's probably the single biggest control in preventing the spread of COVID.
In terms of the Christmas period, are businesses excited, or are they just sitting there worried with the fact that they might not get that Christmas surge? They might not even be able to take advantage of it. Yeah,
I think it's worried would be my observation. I think, you know, that period leading into Christmas is a real runway. Usually, most people leave cities and you know, head off to the beach for summertime, and you can imagine that there will be a fair amount of that going on. So certainly inner city businesses that really rely on people being around are looking for an opportunity to get that run into Christmas and hoping that will still occur. That's why I think the government needs to provide them with a bit more clarity.
All right, dates is what everyone's after. Finally, this week, the Court of Appeal ruling, or certainly a Court of Appeal ruling out yesterday, which means what?
Well, the whole basis of the claim was that it was undertaken by the Labour Inspectorate against a company called Metro Glass. Essentially, the Labour Inspectorate said Metro Glass needed to pay holiday pay on top of bonuses. And Metro Glass said actually bonuses are discretionary payments. They don't fall within the scope of what they would have to pay holiday pay on. And so that's the argument that ended up in the appeal court. The Labour Inspectorate was successful in the employment court, and there was about $500 million worth of holiday pay at stake here. So a lot of businesses were pretty worried about what this would mean for them if the Court of Appeal found in the Labour Inspectorate's favour. The Court of Appeal found for Metro Glass. They said actually these payments are discretionary and they're not covered under the meaning of gross pay, so they were excluded. So a huge sigh of relief, I think, for a lot of businesses, big and small, over that one.
All right, well, certainly a busy week, and no doubt there's going to be a lot more water under the bridge between now and Christmas. Kirk Hope, we'll talk again soon. Thank you.